Hey, Forge fans, Anthony Urcioli with you. It's the match day preview on the Forge Audio Network, your official home of the reigning, defending, undisputed Canadian Premier League champions Forge FC. This week, it's the 9:05 Derby. York United making the trip to Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. Forge coming off a tough 3-0 loss in Calgary last weekend. Just didn't really look like Forge, if I'm being honest. A lot of standing around while Calgary dictated play and showed more of a sense of urgency than Forge did. This week, though, Forge can reset, get a taste of some home cooking, and go face-to-face with their 9:05 rivals from York. Interesting storylines going into this one because both clubs should be motivated to get bad tastes out of their mouths. Last time York was in Hamilton, they stunned Forge with a banger in the final seconds to walk away with a 2-0 win. And that was in the midst of a tough stretch for Forge. And this one just didn't sit well with the club, understandably so. So when the two teams played again, this time at York Lions Stadium, Forge put together one of the most dominant performances you will ever see at any level, embarrassing York with a 4-0 win. A turning point of sorts for Forge as they were able to kind of right the ship and go on a run. And they're now in contention for the top spot on the table. So both clubs looking to avenge some painful losses. And let me tell you, I was sitting in a box getting ready for the live match in review after Forge's home loss to York. And there were York players and staff in the box next to me. My room was shaking after that York goal in the final seconds. So the reaction for York, it may as well, it was like they just won a final. But this is how important it is for York, for their fans, for everyone involved with York to beat Forge. And if anyone wants to doubt what this rivalry means for both sides, especially York, they take extra delight in beating Forge FC. So it makes the losses against York sting a little bit more. But the flip side of that is the wins are that much sweeter. It's the beauty of a rivalry. It is what it is. It's why sports are sports. It's for rivalries like this. So in for something special this weekend, and you can be there to witness it live, forgefc.ca/tickets. Now we will give you an in-depth preview of the match this weekend between Forge and York. But first, some news and announcements to discuss with you. First off, Forge FC and its partners at Hamilton Volkswagen are again coming together to make a positive impact off the pitch. This summer, the club is hosting a food drive supporting Good Shepherd, charity organization dedicated to alleviating hunger and homelessness in the Hamilton community. Hunger, of course, you may not notice it, but let me tell you, it is a pressing issue still affecting countless individuals and families within our community. And the club is looking for donations of non-perishable food items to help Good Shepherd continue their essential work. So until match day on Saturday, Forge FC shop, located at the stadium, will be the designated drop-off point for all non-perishable food items. Whether you're picking up the latest Forge FC merchandise or just, stopping by to support the cause, feel free to bring along your donations and make a difference in the lives of those less fortunate. So on Saturday now, as you head to the Forge York match, consider bringing some of the most needed food items to contribute to the food drive. Those items include cereal, canned tuna, peanut butter, Kraft dinner, dried pasta, tomato sauce, canned soup, and a dried and boxed soup as well. Your contribution of any of those items I just mentioned, no matter how big or small, will go a long way in helping those struggling with hunger in the Hamilton area. Another great cause coming up, September 9th, the club announcing the date of the second annual Spark Summit, aimed to connect and inspire professional women in the sports and entertainment industry. As I mentioned last week, I went to last year's event, and it was informative. It was moving. I got so much out of it. And that's it. That's as, even just as a man, just listening to stories and different experiences, and which were a lot different than my experiences, which is exactly the point. So, I mean, I got a lot out of it. I'm sure you can too. Just head on over to forgefc.ca and get more information on the Spark Summit and how you can register to attend. That event is on September 9th. So we're about a month away. This weekend, though, the 905 Derby makes a stop at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. Here's how things are looking on the table going into this match. Forge FC currently sitting in third place with 29 points. They are 3 points back of first place Pacific. Cavalry is in second. York in sixth place. This is a club that needs points. They need wins, and they need them badly because we're coming down to the wire now, and there are way too many 6-point swings with these matches, with all the clubs sandwiched together and all playing each other. York right now, they are tied for the final playoff spot, and they're also tied with Atletico. So right now there's a 3-way tie for fourth place. But York is at the bottom of that tiebreaker because they played more matches. So that's where York is, but obviously they are hungry for points. And did they give up? I mean, squandered 2 valuable points against Ottawa last weekend. We'll get into that shortly. Forge F's, Forges, they're still trying to improve upon that home record, which has just not been where it needs to be. If this club just had a slightly better home record, we would be talking about Forge sitting comfortably in top spot on the table. For whatever reason, it's been inconsistent in terms of the results. Forge now, although they have gone 3 straight matches at home with a win, 2 wins and a draw. So certainly things have been much better lately. They have played 9 games at home and have 13 points. That is 5th best. The 5th best home points total in the CPL. Away from home, York, very good. In fact, they with their point against Ottawa, they leapfrogged Forge, who had a great road record, still do, but York now 1 point better than Forge on the road this season. They are tied for the best point total on the road. So York, a very good away team. Head-to-head between these two clubs, they have played each other 20 times in 4+ seasons. Forge winning 12 of those matches, York winning 7, and the clubs playing to a draw in the other. This is the final meeting between these two clubs. It'll be the 4th on the year. First one was way back, May 5th. Forge with a 1-0 victory at York. Next one, May 31st. That was a 2-1 win at Tim Hortons Field. York, again, scoring in the just dying seconds to secure 3 points in that one. And things were rocky for Forge during and a little bit after that as well. And then Forge completely, this was a turning point in the season. And depending how this season ends, this could be the turning point for Forge FC. It was a 4-0 win at York. They're playing what you thought was going to be a very motivated York squad, because this match was for first place. It was a match for first place, York playing at home and getting embarrassed in front of their fans. Forge winning 4-0. It was as dominant a win as you will ever see. And which is why you got to be aware of that revenge factor. But like I said, Forge also looking for some revenge because they felt embarrassed about that result at home when they ended up losing the match in the final seconds. Something has to give here. Head-to-head, York has gone 6 matches without a clean sheet against Forge FC. And 7 of the last 8 matches between these two squads, there have been more than 4.5 bookings. That's a hefty number and not at all surprising. If you've seen a York Forge match, that'll be the least surprising thing you hear all broadcast here. Team streaks, well, York's been scoring. And their matches have gone over 2.5 goals, 6 out of the last 8 times. Forge, by the way, this is a change. Remember Forge had that streak where they had gone 7 or 8 matches straight without scoring the opening goal of a match? That's changed. Not so coincidentally, so has their results in general. As they've been winning, one clear thing has stood out, and they are scoring first. They have scored first in 4 of their last 5 matches. And unsurprisingly, the one match they did not score first was the last one, and it was a loss. Also, York's been in some let's call them rough matches, at least according to the bookings. There have been more than 4.5 cards in a match that York has been a part of in 4 of their last 5. Forge, complete opposite. In 4 of the last 5, there have been less than 4.5 cards. And I thought this was interesting too. Forge FC, more than 10.5 corners in 4 of the last 5 matches. That's at least 11 corners in 4 of the last 5 matches. Forge FC, again, not surprising when you look at, scoring first in 4 of their last 5, all the corners they're getting. They've been good. Forge has been good. The last match is one they're going to want to forget, but everything leading up to that has been very, very good. Forge looking like the contenders we thought they would eventually look like as the season went on. Kyle Becker is still the king of the SofaScore ratings. If you've listened before, I like talking about these ratings, these player ratings, because a lot of times all we really get to know about a player is how many goals they've scored, how many assists they've made. But a rating, soccer ratings out of 10 give you an indication of just all the positive they're doing. Successful passes, dribbles, if they're taking care of the football, not turning it over, shots on target, converting those shots into goals. All these great things are kind of combined into a score, and you can lose points in that score if you turn the ball over, if you take poor shots and make poor tackles and poor challenges. So all that said, out of 10, Kyle Becker, number 1 in the league, overall rating, complete player, 7.35 on the year. And another Forge player on that list in the top 10, Mandrakar James, the defender, at 7.10. He's 9th out of 10th, and he's just ahead of Ali Musi, who's been a fantastic player this season for Calvary. Goals and assists combined, I see a few Forge logos on this top 10 list. Terran Campbell, Kyle Becker are 4 and 5 on the list. And Woobens Pacius is number 7 on the list of goals plus assists. And I'm including this because we just talked about these SofaScore ratings. The highest ratings all season, just on a match per match basis. Terran Campbell has had the highest rating all season. The last time he did it was against York United. He had a 9.3. That 9.3 is the highest rating any player has gotten this season. And so Terran Campbell leading the way there. And he shows up on the list twice this year. He's had the first and 4th best rating all season in a match. He had a 9.3 against York, and he had an 8.8 against Ottawa. Tristan Henry, by the way, the only goalkeeper, that it's remarkable that a goalkeeper is on the list to begin with. Tristan Henry, 5th highest, and that was that match against Atletico Ottawa when he just absolutely stood. It was the single greatest goalkeeping performance I've ever seen in my life. He had an 8.8 rating in that one. That's the 5th best in the year, and there's no goalkeeper even remotely close to that. I called him the G-GOAT last season, the greatest goalkeeper of all time in the CPL, and I firmly stand behind that. An interesting stat that will become a theme as we kind of get into, as we get a little deeper into York and what Forge is up against. York leads the league, and I feel like they have led the league for most, if not the entire season, big chances missed. York, depending how this season turns out, will look back and look at all the big chances they've squandered. They lead the league in big chances missed with 29. Forge, by the way, 2nd on the list with 25. And a lot of those for Forge came in that early to the first third of the season when things weren't going well, which is why we believed that Forge would turn the corner soon. Because this is not a club that misses a lot of big chances, and they have this year. And eventually, that's got to even out. I mean, there's no way that's going to stay consistent. York United, though, you want to say eventually they'll turn the corner, but they've been so up and down. I'm not sure it's there. Again, we will see. Adding to some of that bad news for York United, a suspension. It was announced a couple days ago that striker De Rosario will be ineligible to represent the club for 1 month, effective immediately after he received a sanction from the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport following an anti-doping rule violation. This is one of those violations that you want to put a little asterisk on, because when you hear that, you think something else, let's just say. But in fact, De Rosario says he inadvertently ingested THC, a component of cannabis, which, by the way, is legal in Canada, which is why it seems kind of odd that he was suspended. However, THC is included on the World Anti-Doping Agency's list of prohibited substances, and that is the list the league goes by. They don't actually have a say because all of these, the Canadian Anti-Doping Program has its own rules. It's based on the World Anti-Doping Agency. So although it's legal in Canada, the CPL cannot, override basically that. And the 1 month suspension is the lowest available sanction for a THC violation. I think it's interesting that in the announcement, in the release, that was added, that they gave him the lowest amount for a THC violation. I think it's just because it's legal. He didn't break the rules. He didn't break the law, I should say. He broke a very specific kind of rule that is, I don't know. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but he will be out for a month. And with that, more on how that'll affect York and what we can expect from Forge's big geographical rivals, York United. We bring in CanPL.ca reporter Benedict Rhodes. All right, Benedict. York will be without De Rosario this weekend and for the next 4 weeks after he failed the drug test, which found THC in his system. I discussed it with the listeners earlier in detail. So details aside, from where you're sitting and just from a soccer perspective and from a York perspective, how big of an impact could this have, especially considering York is kind of in the middle of a playoff chase right now?
Yeah, obviously, Cesar De Rosario hasn't had the best season offensively. Like last season, he scored 12 goals, I believe. This year, only 3, if I'm correct. So maybe he hasn't had the best season, but he's still a player that can have a huge impact, and once he gets going, could be really good. So he'll definitely be missed for York. Brian Wright, his likely replacement, he scored his first goal this season last weekend, or this past weekend, a couple days ago. So it'll be interesting to see how York does without him. I think the biggest impact on York and De Rosario will be the fact they can't train for a month. I think that'll be with the team anyway. I think that'll be the biggest impact on them.
Yeah, York is they're a club that I have a lot of difficulty figuring out. Some weeks they look like just a legit contender. Others, they look like a 6th place club, which is where they're sitting at the time of this chat anyway. And maybe that was best exemplified in the match you covered last weekend in Ottawa, York blowing a 2-0 and then a 3-2 lead to gain just 1 point during a time when they need as many points as they can get. It just really seemed like a perfect summation of York's up and down season to this point.
Yeah, definitely. I think Martin Nash doesn't understand his team any more than you or I do. I don't think it's a team where, like you said, they have the potential to be really, really good. And at times they have been really, really good, but it's just a matter of closing out games, closing out halves. I think that's what we saw in Ottawa, for example. Like you said, they were up 2-0, then they give up 2 probably preventable goals. I mean, the free kick, you can't do much about that, but the first goal came on a giveaway that Carl Howarth capitalized on for Ottawa, and then the second half they get lucky on a crazy own goal, but then so some luck for them, but then they give up another one on a sort of poor preventable goal, I guess, from across into the box. So it's a team that has potential to be really good, but they just need to find their way to close out halves. Close out the final 10 minutes of the first half, close out the final 10 minutes of the second half, and try and prevent the preventable things, I guess.
Yeah, and since I can remember this season, I mean, Forge York. Forge at times too, but York's led the league in big chances missed this season, and it's not a one. Forge was struggling, and they weren't capitalizing on their opportunities, and they had a lot of big chances missed. But you kind of had a feeling they would turn the corner eventually, just because of this lineup and the experience and the quality and they have. But York, they've been at the top of the stat category that is not one you want to be on, and that's big chances missed. And it's been like that all year. And you get to a point where it can't just be considered bad luck anymore. I mean, it has to be a little deeper than that.
Yeah, I think so. Like if it's 5 or 10 games, it becomes maybe it's bad luck, maybe it's just a small sample size. But they're 19 games, I believe, into their season. There's only 9 games left, so it's getting to the point now where, like I said, Osaze de Rosario, Brian Wright haven't been taking advantage of their chances, and like I said, Wright only scored his first goal this past weekend, but he's been starting and playing minutes in pretty much every single game. So it'd be interesting to see if he can sort of take some confidence from this one, getting that first one off his back, and see if he can bounce back. But yeah, I do think they need to find goals from him, whether it's from him, from Obabuli, from other sources. They need to find a way to start putting the ball in the back of the net more consistently, and it needs to start this weekend, really.
Yeah, we're kind of, that's the thing. And, I mentioned Atletico, Ottawa doing everything possible to make it a 4-horse race at the top, along with Pacific, Calvary, and Forge. And I got to tell you, I have no idea how this race is going to finish. It's looking more and more like the first 2 spots will be awarded in the final week of the season in October.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I think that's part of the excitement about the playoff format as well this year with 5 teams, and the higher you finish, the more you're rewarded for it, I guess, with a home playoff game or playing less games in the playoffs. So I think that we're going to see as the pressure sort of keeps mounting and we get closer towards the end of the regular season, I suspect it'll be really, really tight all the way to the end as it's looking like 6 teams is going to try and narrow itself down to 5.
And you have a bunch of clubs, York's in there, Cavalry, clubs that haven't just quite been able to get over the hump come playoff time. And this is still a newish league, so the term hot seat doesn't necessarily seem fair. And I don't want to single any coaches out specifically, but in general, I mean, can you think of just a handful of clubs where if they miss the playoffs or even just, bow out after a game or 2 in the playoffs, they're going to really have to start looking at making some big changes? In other words, time is kind of running out on, that window to win, so to speak, is kind of closing for some of these clubs.
Yeah, some clubs, like I don't think Boys Munoz is in the hot seat, but Forge, for example, is a team where they've had players who've been around for all 5 seasons, and I think a team like Cavalry, for example, or Pacific to some extent has had some players that have been around for a long time and really want to win, and Pacific or Halifax or York have changed up a lot of things, and I think that window is probably in the earlier stages, I guess. Whereas for Cavalry, for example, they're going to be a team that wants to win now. They have 2 chances now. They have a regular season title and a playoff title. They obviously want both, as every team does. But I think this is going to be the year that they're going to want to really, really push and sort of get that first title out of the way.
Forge got a boost last week where they announced the signing of Belgian attacker Benny Badabenga. Besides having a fantastic name, he made his debut for Forge in the last match, their newest signing, and that was against Cavalry. You saw it on display. The game was kind of, I think they were already down 3-0 at that point, but you saw the pace and the skill that Badabenga brings, and he was just immediately noticeable on the pitch. What does he bring specifically when you just put into context the depth this club has up front? What element does Benny bring to that?
I think the exciting thing, if you're a Forge fan or a follow of the league, is Forge have all these great attackers, and they went out and got another one, and that should be exciting. They clearly trust this guy. They think he's a real deal, and I've only watched him play for about 15 minutes, whatever it was in the last game. I haven't ever watched him before that, but he seems to be, like you said, an attacking player who can sort of make things happen and sort of link the lines, create opportunities for the strikers, which Forge at times have lacked. And my colleague Mitchell Tierney, who's been on the show a few times, he posted a great video of one pass in particular, a Benny Bag in the second half, where he almost effortlessly just plays the ball in behind from like 30 yards outside of his foot. Beautiful pass for Passies, I believe. And it's just a great play. And if he can start unlocking teams like that, I think, Forge have a chance to create even more chances than they have been.
And does it take time for, this club that so many of these players have been together for a long time, for a guy to step in into a group that already has so much chemistry and cohesiveness? What kind of pressure does that put on a player to adapt and to just try to fit in?
Yeah, there's 2 ways of looking at that. I think there's, he said the one way is trying to fit into a new group, but at the same time, I think having a Forge team that I think brought back 18 or 19 players, and they all know each other quite well, I think that might almost help him in a way. It's not like the whole team is coming in fresh, so then that might be something that he can benefit from as well. Is these guys know each other? How can I work with a Terran Campbell and a Kyle Becker? How can I sort of be the link between those two guys? So I think that's something I'm excited to see, is how others can welcome him in rather than him having to try and force his way in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you have Forge in the midst of a regular season title race. You have York on the cusp of a playoff spot right now, so plenty on the line this weekend at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. Benedict Rhodes, a pleasure as always, and enjoy what should be a great weekend of soccer. 3 keys to the match for Forge FC as they take on York United Saturday night at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. Key number 1 for Forge: bank on the flanks. York United, they like to deploy a 4-2-3-1 formation. Gives them versatility in their attack, but leaves them susceptible on the flanks because of the wide players for York being so high up the pitch. Forge's wingers and fullbacks, who already enjoy playing wide, especially on that wide pitch at Tim Hortons Field, should have even more room to work, switching the field often enough that York's unable to get into a comfortable shape defensively. Bank on the flanks. Key number 2 for Forge FC: quick counter. Forge's wingers have to be ready to run and receive the ball right after a change of possession. Again, York's attacking style leaves them vulnerable on the flanks, as I said, especially on the counter. If Forge can take the turnovers and immediately look upfield and deliver the ball into wide spaces, Forge should be able to create plenty of dangerous opportunities, but the key is to do it with speed, with pace. Key number 3 for Forge FC: take away the 10. The most important player in York's formation and their attack is that number 10. Usually that's Mo Babouli, but every time I make a prediction about someone's lineup, they change it, so I'm not going to say it's him for sure. But if he's the 10, then it's Babouli. If not, it's the 10, regardless. We'll call him the 10. It's relied on heavily to link York's attack. It is a crucial part of that attack. And Forge has done a great job all year owning the middle of the pitch against York. And they can do it again by controlling possession and then relying on their number 6. Usually Hojab Rapport, sometimes Kadeem Kane, to make sure that the attacking midfielder for York is tightly marked. All right. That's it. That's it. There's nothing left to say. All that's left is for this match to go down Saturday night, 7 o'clock, Tim Hortons Field, forgefc.ca/tickets to be there and experience the 905 Derby live. Do not forget the partnership with the Good Shepherd. If you have a non-perishable food item, bring it with you, particularly cereal, canned tuna, peanut butter, Kraft Dinner, dried pasta, tomato sauce, canned soup, dried and boxed soup as well. And don't forget, immediately following that match, a live match in review, head on over to the Forge FC YouTube channel and get instant post-whistle reaction. Okay. We will talk to you very, very soon.